on, that's it. Oh, he's not going away from it? I know he's really
We're live.
fuss with no, I don't know.
Um, okay, I guess it's a shame we can't post the link. Okay, so we're learning the Maimon Kiyimei tzescha me'eretz Mitzrayim and the Fleiss. Tafshin Mem Beis, which is printed in Sefer Maimon Melukat Beis, and we are holding on page Lamed Tes. Beis Daf. This is the last year. Yep, this is the last year until Pesach. So we're gonna have to cover. We're gonna have to get to the end of the Maimer. So we're gonna move fast today, and the Mitzvah Hashem towards the end, I'll try to tie everything together. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach. So the primary Nakuda, the primary point that we need to take with us from last year to be able to continue with the flow of the Maimer for this year is that the Rebbe said that Yetzias Mitzrayim was a novelty. It created something new in the world, which is the idea of redemption, the idea of Geula, that somebody could find himself in a state of Golus, in a state of exile, and he's not stuck there for the rest of his life. He's able to leave it. He's able to come to a state of freedom and redemption. And the Rebbe said that since this idea, this concept only became possible through Yetzias Mitzrayim, so therefore, even when Mashiach comes, we're going to still mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's still going to be associated. Even the revelations of Mashiach are connected to Yetzias Mitzrayim, because it's Yetzias Mitzrayim that enables and creates the possibility for the Geula, for the redemption of the days of Mashiach. And with this kernel of an idea, there it continues. Nice Dalid. And try to stay sharp because we're going to move fast until the end. And this is also the answer to our question from earlier in the Maimer. Why it says in the pasuk kiyimei, like the days, Yimei Lashen Rabim, and we had a question on this, that Yetzias Mitzrayim hadn't happened in one single day, in one single instance. Why does the pasuk call it Yimei Lashen Rabim, many days? The explanation is the call Hayam Mimei Gula Rishayna Migalus Mitzrayim Ada Gula Asida B'Meir V'Yameinu Amen Him Yimei Tzescha Be'eretz Mitzrayim K'mvur B'Amayim Rishon. The answer is that all of the days, from the day of Yetzias Mitzrayim, way back when, all the way until when Mashiach is going to come immediately now, every single one of these days is part of the process of leaving Mitzrayim. So the Yemei, the many days of Yetzias Mitzrayim, is every single day from the day that we left Mitzrayim until the day that we arrive at the Gula Amitis Vashlema immediately B'Yameinu. And Rebbe explains, V'hainu, the Mas should be Yetzias Mitzrayim Niftachat Sinner. This, that in Yetzias Mitzrayim, the channel was open, the possibility was given. Gam ala Gula Asida, also for the redemption from this Galus, for the Gula Asida with Mashiach. Haseder B'Zahu, the order in it is, Shebekol Yom V'Yom Meis Yetzias Mitzrayim Ad Gula Asida Nasa Inin Yetzias Mitzrayim Be'ifenai L'Yeseh. That in every single day that passes, from the day that Moshe Rabbeinu took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim, going through all the generations, including this day, today, until the day when Mashiach comes, every single day is another Yetzias Mitzrayim. So if somebody knows the numbers and is good in math, you can calculate how many days we had, how many thousands and tens of thousands of days we had since Yetzias Mitzrayim until this day. And in each day was another repetition, but not a repetition like we'll see soon in the Maimer, another level in going out of Mitzrayim in a higher level. Until we're going to come to the complete and ultimate level of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which will be when Mashiach comes. And now the Rebbe starts explaining a little bit more in detail. How does this work? The says in Gemara, the Rebbe brings in a tiny that in every single day, in every single generation, and the Alter Rebbe adds every single day, a person is obligated to see himself as if he went out of Mitzrayim today. And the explanation that's given is, what does it mean that every single day a person has to see himself as if he left Mitzrayim? But I didn't leave Mitzrayim. What do you mean every day I have to see myself as if I did? That happened a long time ago. I didn't. The explanation is that every single day there's a miniature Yetzias Mitzrayim that happens in the person's life, in the person's Aveda, and by Klal Yisrael also, every single day. So just like we had the major Yetzias Mitzrayim, every single day we also have to feel and live a Yetzias Mitzrayim, because that is what happens on a minor scale every single day. Like we said before, even though it's on a minor scale, however, every day is a step higher than the day that came before it. He explains like this. Especially in the time when a person says Krishma, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe asks, why do we have the three parshas in Krishma? Seemingly, the two first parshas we can understand. Shman, V'hoyim, Shemai, we can understand. They talk about serving Hashem, listening to His mitzvahs, and living them in our day-to-day life. Then there's a third parsha that seems out of place. Talks about Yitzias Mitzrayim. What's the connection? The Alter Rebbe answers in Tanya. Alter Rebbe explains that the idea of Kriyas, when a Yid declares right at the start, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, he places himself under the governorship of the Eibishter. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. He denies the entire governorship of this world, and he says that I am placing myself under the authority and under the and in the property of the Eibishter, with the words Ma Yisrael. So this is a Yitzias Mitzrayim. The person is leaving the reality of this world, even though he still stays in this world, but he's leaving the constraints of this world, the Mitzrayim of this world, and he's connecting himself to the Eibishter. And we say it not only during the daytime, in other words, in the davening of Shachris. We also say it during nighttime, in the davening of Ma'ariv, Harambam. Like the Rambam wrote the Mashakein in Parshas Tzitzis Gam B'Kriyas Meshal Aravis. The Rambam has a different question on the third parsha of Yitzias Mitzrayim Vayemer. Why do we read it at night? The whole parsha seemingly talks primarily about tzitzis, and that at night is not the time for the mitzvah of tzitzis. So seemingly, when we say Kriyas during the day, I can accept that we say the third parsha about tzitzis. Why, when we say it at night, that we say the third parsha about tzitzis? It's not applicable to nighttime. And the Rambam answers, Alpha Pishain Mitzvah Tzitzis Neheges B'Layla. Even though at night is not the time when we perform the mitzvah of tzitzis, nevertheless, because there's another dimension to the third parsha in Kriyas Shema, which is Yitzias Mitzrayim. We mentioned that the Eibishter took us out of Mitzrayim, and it's because of that that we slain the third parsha also at night. So this Aveda of Kriyas Shema, which is the Aveda, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, of exiting the governorship of the Nefesh Ba'amis, that we're no longer under the command, under the authority of the Nefesh Ba'amis. We're not under the command of the laws of nature. We're not under the command of what the Goyim say. That we are only under the rulership of the Eibishter. This Aveda, this service happens side by day and side by night, and this service is the same exact idea as Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's the same concept. We're leaving the bondage of this world and the limitations of the klippos and that exist in this world, and we're coming to the freedom of the Eibishter. And that's why we say the third parsha also during the nighttime. So this is the Aveda of Yidden every single day. Every day we have this Aveda again and again. The kiyimei tzescha Mitzrayim, and there it comes back not to the point that he started with, that this is the meaning of kiyimei loshen rabim. The many days, even though Yitzias Mitzrayim happened in one day, nevertheless the pasuk says the many days. Since we mentioned Yitzias Mitzrayim in Kriyas Shema during Shachris and in Kriyas Shema during Ma'ariv, we mention it. This Aveda, this service to the Eibishter, brings about and creates the Yitzia, the leaving, the exodus from Mitzrayim every single day that the Yidden are living since then, since the first Yitzias Mitzrayim. That on every single day the Yidden leave progressively higher and higher levels of limitation. In other words, not greater limitations, but even more minor and even more minute limitations, even more subtle limitations. We keep leaving them. So if yesterday we left a more pronounced limitation, today, since we already left that limitation today our avodah was to leave a limitation that's a little more subtle, that doesn't scream in our face so loudly, and that doesn't seem so pernicious. And Rebbe says that the Yidden as a whole place themselves, and every single Yid places himself b'matzav shalu paratzta l'mayla mimidida the hakbala. He places himself in a condition, in a situation of uparasta, that he overpowers any constraints, any boundaries, any limitations. He overpowers them and overcomes them. V'ad shaboim, and this avodah of overcoming our limitations, we come to the ultimate and complete uparatsta, overcoming and overpowering limitations and boundaries, which is going to be bigula mitzvah shlema l'mashiach tzidkenu d'chsiv be'ala peretz lifneim, which this ultimate uparatsta is going to happen when Mashiach comes through Mashiach, like it says, Allah haperetz lifneim, that the peretz, the one who overcomes and overpowers boundaries, this is a reference to Mashiach, is going before them, is leading them, and therefore it's going to be the ultimate pritzas kolam edidus v'agbolos. It's going to be the ultimate breaking of any boundaries, anything that hides and conceals and limits our ability to serve the Eibishter and to connect to the Eibishter. And this is the reason why Mashiach is the son of David. And it's not only that he's a descendant of David, but also the simanim that the Rambam gives on Mashiach is we emphasize that Mashiach also in his actions, in his life, in his accomplishments, he is similar to David HaMelech. And he also fights the wars of the Eibishter just like David HaMelech did. And he breaks through the limitations and the boundaries because the David we know is from the descendants of Peretz. The Peretz, it says that right from when he was born, he broke through limitations and he overpowered his natural situation, which this is Pritzas Kol Hagdolim V'Hamedidus V'Hagbolos. Breaking through and overpowering any types of definitions and boundaries and limitations, we break through them. Okay, so this is the first point, that the idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim is what? Is breaking through the limitations and the boundaries. In other words, you have a person living down here in this world. He has a guf and a nefesh ba'amis, and then you have all the klippos and the lu'umas that exist in the world, and you have to go to a job, and you have to answer to a job, and you have to deal with the people in the office, and some people even work in these major companies where you start having a big company culture, and the company culture is influenced by American culture, which is nicht as gut. And Nebuch, the person is stuck in this situation because he has a commandment from the Eibishter for Parnasa. The Eibishter told him, go out to the world and work, and this is the place where the Eibishter gave him his Parnasa, and he finds himself limited by all of these realities or seeming realities that are around him that seem to dictate his life and to control his life. And a Yid does the Aveda of every single day, breaking through another level of these boundaries. In other words, if when he started all the way in the beginning of his way, these limitations and boundaries seemed to have a real grip on him that he couldn't break, slowly, day after day, he breaks them bit by bit. And sometimes it could be in our life that we don't even recognize the progress that we make from day to day, because there's literally thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of levels to break out of our limitations. Somebody who has an issue, a personality issue, a character issue, and wants to work on it, can tell you that the Seder is that it's a very long journey. Like it says in the pasuk, anything not good, any klippa, which issues in somebody's personalities is a yetzahara. So the process is matmat. You get rid of it slowly, not in one shot. And you make, but how do you make progress? Every single day, you make just the smallest, the tiniest amount of progress every day. And then when you look back over the course of a year, you realize that over the course of the past year, even though you couldn't tell and notice the changes that happen each day, but somehow you got from here to there. So you understand that actually every single day you move just a drop. And that's why by the end of the year, you ended up moving a lot. And so too in the long course of history, it's the same story that in every generation and in every year within the generation within every day, there's another ascent and another breaking through of an even more subtle boundary. And the boundaries of here primarily, when we mean to say, is in our ability to connect to the Eibishter and to serve the Eibishter with Torah and mitzvahs. Okay, so that's on a more general level. Now in Eis Hey, the Rebbe says it happens also in a more detailed level, and that gives a very interesting picture of how the system works. They say there's a Geula, this process of Geula, like they were just mentioned in the previous Eis, that it started on the day we left Mitzrayim, literally. Until slowly but surely, through the daily Avodah. every single day of our life and every single day of history. We finally reach the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, which is going to be Allah HaPetz Lifnin, in other words, the ultimate and complete breaking of all boundaries and limitations. So Yesh Dugmase B'chol Yom V'Yom. This entire story actually also happens every single day. The entire process happens every single day. And Rebbe explains, in the beginning of the day, Kedem Atfilah, when a person is still before he davens. A person is found in his own personal Egypt of that day. In other words, what is his Mitzrayim? The person finds himself in the limitations and in the boundaries of his body. The limitations and the boundaries of his body have a complete, shouldn't say a complete, but they have a very strong and powerful grip on him. Like it says in the Pasuk, forget about, let go of the person who has a neshama, a soul in his nostrils. Because what is he? He's considered nothing. He's insignificant and small. And we learn in this pasuk, al tikre b'meh el bama. Change the nekudas of the word b'meh. There's a hidden message over here that the person is considered like a bama, like a mizbeach, which is used to bring karbanos achman litzlan to avodah zarah. Why is the person called a bama? Why is the person called a place where karbanos are brought to avodah zarah? Because he gave us the answer to that earlier in the pasuk. In the beginning of the day, what is primarily the force in the person, the reality within his existence, is what is his body, and the neshama, his spiritual dimension, his soul, hirak be'apoi, didn't spread out yet and didn't take over his entire body, only managed to take over one small part of his body, only his nose, his nostrils. The enemy and it doesn't spread out and conquer the rest of the body. And since his entire makeup, besides for one small part, is without a neshama, so therefore he's called a bama. He's called a mizbeach shru teikif. The bama is meant to say shru teikif. This is the strength, the power, the force of the constraints and the boundaries of his material body. And then what does a person have to do? He has to start his work of exiting his limitations and his constraints of his material body, and he has to start coming closer to Hashem. And he goes to daven. And how does this work? Since the person is dealing with this body that is not that the awareness of the neshama didn't enter into it yet and didn't take it over, didn't become part of its identity. So therefore, in the beginning of the day, the person has to work in a way that he has to force the body, because the body on its own doesn't have this awareness of the neshama. So he has to force the body into it. That he overcomes the materialism of the body and the nefesh habahamis and the lumas and the klippos, until he finally succeeds and he brings about shagam haguf nefesh habahamis yanu amin bal karchim b'chinas v'yisai Hashem should answer amen against their will. The body at this stage in the morning has no interest when it comes to shachas to serve the Eibishter. It's against their will that the person forces his body to answer amen and to assist his neshama, which cannot answer amen. His neshama can't answer amen without his body. So that he forces his body to assist him to serve the Eibishter. However, since it's only at the beginning of the day and he didn't work too much yet with his body and with his nefesh habahamis, with his animalistic soul and with his materialism, so therefore he can't yet transform it. At this point, he can only force it to do things that it's kicking and screaming against and doesn't want to do. But then, as the day progresses, slowly but surely, he works on himself more and more. The person slowly but surely manages to actually transform his body, and in his transformation of his existence, of his body that happens. There's two levels. In the beginning of it, he doesn't manage to bring his material existence along for the journey of serving the Eibishter, but rather he manages to quiet it, to silence it. That it's no longer saying, I want to do something else. Instead, it's just quiet. And if the neshama wants to take it along, so it goes along without putting up a fight. And then finally, at the end of the day, he reaches the ultimate level, which is that he loves the Eibishter not only with his neshama, but he also, and that the body doesn't get into the way, but he also loves the Eibishter with his body. With his physical existence, he loves the Eibishter. Even his Yetzer Hara itself is transformed, is changed into good, which this is the concept of a complete tshuva me'ava, which in that tshuva we say that even the Averis, and in this case, that was applying it to the Yetzer Hara, becomes zachias. They become merits. In other words, they become part of the story of serving the Eibishter, and that includes his Yetzer Hara also. So that's the general process that happens every single day. And these two states of serving the Eibishter, in the beginning of the day is skafia, where he has to force himself to do what the Eibishter wants. And by the end of the day, he's already at his hapcha, that he's already happy and willing to join the program. He's happy to sit to do a mitzvah. He's happy to learn another vart of Torah. He's happy to daven. Him, just like he's happy to eat. Yeah, let's shut his hapcha. The chud, if you're going to say that his hapcha over here is the aveda where a person manages to change his emotions, that his heart is full with love to the Eibishter. I'm not sure how to type the words, and I have to ask a mashpia what it means. But pashtus, this aveda where a person manages to transform his midas, that he loves the Eibishter with a lively and pumping passion. That's the aveda of a tzaddik. I understand the Maimah here, if I have it right, I understand it more that it's along the lines of these hafcha that the Frierdiker talks about in the first Maimah Basi Lagani with pashtus. That just like the person has in his mind that he has to eat and he has to sleep, and he doesn't let anything get into the way of his eating and sleeping, so too he has in his mind that he has to serve the Eibishter. It's at the same level. He manages to accomplish within his own self that his service of the Eibishter is equal, if not greater, than his desire and his insistence on eating and sleeping. So in other words, the way I understand over here, and there's probably other explanations also, but the way I understand over here, what Dev is saying over here, this is hapcha, is that he's happy. By the end of the day, he's pashat happy to live as a yid and to serve the Eibishter through Torah and mitzvahs, and with a joy and with a vitality at the end of the day. And that's the idea of his hapcha. Whereas in the beginning of the day, he was lacking that joy. He was lacking that chayas, that vitality. It was more coerced. By the end of the day, he already manages to do it with a joy, because he brought his body along for the journey. And the Rebbe says that this, and this is just like Yetzias Mitzrayim and Gula Asid. In the beginning of the day, he has a skafi, he has the Aveda of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and in the end of the day, he has his hapcha, he has the Aveda of the Gula of Mashiach. So it's interesting. Yep, you would think that that if you wanted to visualize the process of Yetzias Mitzrayim, where we progress from Yetzias Mitzrayim to the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, you would visualize it as a straight line. We're going in a straight line where we had Yetzias Mitzrayim. We established this idea that we are able to leave our boundaries and our limitations. And every single day, like we mentioned earlier in the Maimer, we go up another level. And within every single day, we actually go through the same process. So we're progressing in a line from one place to another place. But according to the way David just explained in Hay, the visual is actually a little different. The picture is like this. We're going upwards. We're going upwards. From Yetzias Mitzrayim to the Gula Asidas, we're going upwards, like going up a building of 1,000 flights, 1,000 stories, floors. And the process of going upwards starts every day from one side of the building to the other. Yeah? No, I'm not speaking very clearly.
No.
We're going up a staircase. You ever go up a staircase? You're going up. You're walking up on Shabbos, the building. Yeah, if you're in that situation, you're going up. But you start always from one side of the staircase at the bottom. You go up, you end at the other side. And then you got to go back that way. Yeah. And then start and go up the staircase again. So you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But with each going back and forth, you went up another floor. Right? So it's the same thing from Yetzias Mitzrayim to the Gula HaSiddur. We're going up. We're going up the building. But every single day we start at the beginning in our own personal daily Mitzrayim, and we do the Avodah of Iskafia, and we progress along the line, like going up the staircase. We progress along the line from one side of the building to the other, from Yetzias Mitzrayim towards the Gula HaSiddur, and by doing that, we actually climbed the steps, and now we ended up on the floor above us. So it's a process of going upwards, but through a process of back and forth and back and forth. Every single day we have to start at Iskafia, and we end up with his hapcha. We begin the next day again with Iskafia, and we end again with his hapcha. But each time we didn't only move from right to left. In this motion, we were climbing steps, so we also moved up. And ultimately we reach the top level where we reach the Gula Mitzvah Hashlem. Does that make sense, Bel? Yeah? All right. It's an interesting process. It's not a straight line. We keep repeating a process. We're going back and forth, back and forth. So with each repetition, we go up another level. Where do we see that Yetzias Mitzrayim was the idea of Iskafia, of forcing, of coercion? The Yetzias Mitzrayim Ksiv Ki Barach Ha'am. By Yetzias Mitzrayim it says that the nation had to escape. They had to run away. Why did they have to run away? Why couldn't they leave calmly and relaxed? Because they couldn't relax and take it easy because the evil was in its full might, in its full force, and therefore they had to get out of there as soon as possible. And this is the idea of Iskafia, where you have to force your way out. However, La'asid Lavei then will be his hapcha. When you get to La'asid Lavei, it says that the Eibishter will remove the spirit of impurity from the world, which this is like the first level in his hapcha that they ever mentioned, the dugmas that the person manages to remove his Yetzirah, his nafsh b'hamis, from his reality, from his experience, from his behavior and his experience every day. The Yisayda Mizu, that not only he removes the Yetzirah, but then there's the next level in Mashiach and also in the person's work every single day. That when Mashiach comes, the bad itself will be transformed into goodness. Just like the person manages to bring his body, which in the beginning of the day was only a material entity, a material existence, and interested only in material pleasures, and by the end of the day, he's happy to sit down and do a mitzvah and to learn Torah. Like it says in the pasuk, then when Mashiach will come, I will turn to all the nations in a clear voice, in a clear language and speech, to call upon all of the nations of the world, not only the Yid, that all the nations of the world should serve the Eibishter side by side, that even the nations of the world will also serve the Eibishter. So in here we see the transformation from bad to good. That the foreigners, the foreign nations, will stand and shepherd your flocks. In other words, they will help the Yidden in serving the Eibishter. So we see that the bad will not only be banished from the world, but there will also be bad that will be transformed and join the program of good, join the program of Alikus of Gatlichkeit, of godliness. And not only in the nations of the world, which have a human spirit and a human soul, but even in the lower dimensions of the world. For example, by the animals, it was going to be the same process, like it says in the pasuk, and I will banish the not good creatures, in other words, harmful creatures, from the land. And the Gemara teaches, inside the Medrash teaches, mashpis and shelo yaziku, it doesn't mean that they will completely be banished, or at least one of the opinions in the Medrash is that they will cease, mashpis and lashon shvisa, lashon Shabbos, where you rest, where you stop. So they will stop, their harmful behavior and their harmful nature will disappear. The Hagam, that even though at that time we will have chayes, we will have animals whose nature, whose definition is to do harm and bad, nevertheless they won't do it. So that's the first level. In the Ishapcha, where they stop. And then we find other psukim and other mamar chazal, that not only that, even the harmful animals will be transformed to completely serve the Eibishter, that they will also assist and help to serve the Eibishter. Varike bakar. The pasuk says that the wolf will live together and amongst the sheep, and the lion amongst the cattle. And there teaches this comparison. What are we comparing? We're saying that the wolf is like the sheep, and the lion is like the cattle. They're the same, that just like a person can derive benefit from a sheep, so too when Mashiach will come, we'll be able to derive benefit from a wolf. Yeah. People manage to derive benefit from dogs. You can have a guard's dog. You can have a dog help a blind person. However, a wolf wasn't domesticated. People can't derive benefit from a wolf. So the pasuk is saying that when Mashiach will come, the wolf will help us serve the Eibishter, just like the sheep now. A human being can derive benefit from it, can create wool and meat, and use it to serve the Eibishter. And so too with the lion will be the same process. In today's world, in the world of Galus, we cannot derive benefit from a lion. Really, you could learn many lessons from a lion, but you can't derive benefit directly from a lion. However, we could derive benefit from cattle. We can make parchment out of it, and we use it as food, and we could use it to help us plow our fields. When Mashiach will come, the lion will be in the same way. That will also help us to serve the Eibishter, just like cattle today helps us serve the Eibishter. And not only that, and even the lowest of animals, of creatures. Also the snake, which is given these unsavory titles of pestin and sifoni, a very strong klipper, shamish gadol, will be a great servant. So it says in Gemara. We're over here, we see a complete transformation. That we're saying that not only the snake, which is the lowliest of creatures, will also serve the Eibishter. Furthermore, the godless shamish gadol, he will become a great servant of the Eibishter. So we see over here a complete transformation from bad to good. Okay, so to summarize again, in Eis Daled, which is the first Eis that we learned today, the Rebbe tells us this idea that there's kiyimei tzescha meretz Mitzrayim, that since Yetzias Mitzrayim was the beginning, in a sense, of the Geula of Mashiach, so from this we could understand that it's a process that happens in increments every single day, from the day of Yetzias Mitzrayim until the day of the Geula of Mashiach. That every single day we have another mini Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we reach closer and closer to the state of the days of Mashiach, when all of the boundaries and the limitations and the falsehoods of this world will be broken through and overpowered. That's what the Rebbe said in Dalet. In Hey, the Rebbe says that this process is actually also a daily process within the day itself. That every single day the person lives this process of starting with the need for Yetzias Mitzrayim. He starts working with his material body in a way that he has to coerce it and force it to serve the Eibishter. And then by the end of the day, he manages, to one degree or to another, to have his body join the program of serving the Eibishter and of living his life as a Yid. Not in a way that he has to coerce it, but that the body itself feels, this is good for me as a human being, as a person of flesh and blood. It's good for me to live my life as a Yid, like it says in the pasuk, like it says in the pasuk that the Torah is Torah's Chaim, that the Torah is a Torah of life. And the person manages to understand this and to bring this reality and this truth into his mind, into his consciousness, where he sees that to live as a Yid is pashat the best thing for a human being. And by the end of the day, he's holding there. And that's a daily process, and it's a repeat. He starts with Mitzrayim, and he ends his day in a state of Geula, of Mashiach. He begins again the next day in Mitzrayim, he ends again in the day of Geula. But like we said, with each day, he actually went up another flight of stairs. He wasn't moving only from right to left, he was also moving up towards the Geula Mitzvah Shlema. Okay. So according to what we just explained, you have two ways of serving the Eibishter. One way is through coercing and forcing the body to answer Amen, even though it has no interest in it. It just woke up. It's groggy. He's so tired he'd rather catch another few minutes of sleep so that he can make it to work on time. Instead, he has to get up earlier, and he has to rush his coffee, and he has to rush other things that he wants to do. He can't sit and soak in the mikveh. He has to jump in and jump out. And in shul, he sees one of his friends, and he can only tell him in short what he wants to tell him. I'll talk to you later because he needs time to daven via mensch, so he can make it to work on time. So he's forcing himself the whole day, but then he starts davening. Never mind if he learns chassidus before davening, and now already starts the process of slowly breaking this this selfish and pleasure seeking existence that the person found himself waking up with, this bummer, the pasuk calls, that he found himself waking up with, and he slowly breaks it. So that's the Aveda of Iskafi. But then it says, what's the ultimate level? What are we aiming towards? What's the higher way of serving the Eibishter? Not that that the body is in this state, but rather that the body is happy and is full of joy to serve the Eibishter. So that's much higher. So it says it's true, but they was going to discuss now there's actually a big mile. If somebody finds himself, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this situation. I certainly am. That if somebody finds himself good stuck in the level of iskafia, where he has to force himself into doing the right thing, so that says there's a big mile there also. And not only that, the mile of the Aved of iskafia is so great that even when Mashiach comes, we're still going to be talking about it, and we're still going to be deriving benefit from this coerced service of the Eibishter. Before, not the service of the Eibishter where he was able to reach a certain level of accomplishment, but the coerced level where he was forcing himself. So let's see a nice vav. Even though the service of the Eibishter where I managed to transform myself and serve the Eibishter with my entire existence is much greater than when I have to force myself to serve the Eibishter. Nevertheless, there is an advantage and a certain level that exists in the work of iskafia, of coercion, which is higher than the level of ishapchum, of transformation. Like we can understand, first of all, from what it says in Tanya. Who can be given the title of somebody who actively serves the Eibishter? And he serves him like a proper servant, is dafka somebody who has to constantly compel and force himself and change his nature. And this maila is not found in a tzaddik gomer, in somebody who did his hapcha. Once somebody completely transforms himself, does he have to work hard and strain himself to serve the Eibishter? No. He transformed himself. This is naturally what he does. He serves the Eibishter. This is who he is. This is what he is. So he doesn't have to put this tremendous effort and this constantly conscious decision. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then he falls into some pessimistic thought for a few minutes, and he falls into a slight depression or into negativity. And he says, no, I'm running away from here because I believe that I'm a chelik l'chamimal mamish, that I'm a part of the Eibishter, and the Eibishter is right here with me. And that the Eibishter loves me and loves the service that I'm doing for him. He remembers it again. And he goes with that, and it lasts for whatever amount of time it lasts. And then he gets angry at somebody or at something, or he gets frustrated. And again, he has to remind himself, wait, hold on 1 second. I'm a child of the Eibishter. This life, this world is not what it appears to be. Really, I have a soul, and I'm connected to him. And I'm here to transform and to change the reality of this world, that the world's supposed to understand it. And then life goes on, and he has to deal now with something, an unhappy event. And again, it challenges him. The entire day, he is struggling, but fighting so hard to serve the Eibishter. And that's not the Aved of a tzaddik. A tzaddik can't take claim to working so hard in serving the Eibishter. Only somebody who finds himself that he has to do iskaf, that he has to force himself, only he can lay claim to this beautiful and precious service of the Eibishter, where again and again he makes this conscious and concerted effort. I'm going to do it. I'm going to work hard on it, no matter if I feel that I could or if I feel that I can't. And since by the Eibishter this Aveda is so precious, through this type of Aveda, this type of Aveda brings down the glory, the Shechina, the holiness of the Eibishter in the entire world, which is it brings down the highest level of godliness into this world. Like the Fidik ever mentions at great length in Basilagani, a parable from a king, a human king. That when the king finds himself in a state of war, he expends, and without any calculation, without any measure, he just throws all of his treasures out and he gives it to the army, all of his treasure out to the army. Which, when there's a situation of normalcy and peace and calm in the world and harmony, not only that the king does not use these precious treasures l'shum davar, for anything else, not only that he doesn't use them, he actually hides them away and seals them from that nobody could even look at them. The dafka be'esam al-chama, it's only when there's a time of war, a state of opposition and conflict and strife. So then dafka you get the greatest treasure? You think it doesn't make any sense? The time when we have the greatest things is in a time of peace and harmony, when everything is going good, when we're in full control of our lives, we're in full control of what's going on. The enemy doesn't dare to lift and rear his ugly head. You would think that that's the time when we're in the greatest state. But we see, that when does a king go all out and give everything that he has, including all of the treasure that his parents before him collected, and he never allowed anybody to see it because of its preciousness? When does he go and spend it? And not only spend it, but he throws it literally, freely, to anybody who will just take it and do something good with it. When does he do this? He does this only in a time of war. That's when it happens. And it's the same thing with us in our personal Aveda to the Eibishter. That the highest levels of Kedusha are revealed dafka through this Aveda of war, of conflict, of strife that we have to lead every day with our Nefesh Bahamas. V'davka beis hamilchama, it's specifically and only in the time of war. He learned actually, it's not only that he now opens up and is no longer hiding his treasures. He throws it without any limitations and without any boundaries. Who does he give it to? He doesn't give it to the big professors. He doesn't give it to the intellectuals. He doesn't even give it to the generals and commanders of his army. He gives it la'anshe hachayil. He gives it to the simple foot soldiers to make sure that they have the boots that they need, and that they have the coat that they need, and that they have the food and the rations that they need, and that they have the ammunition that they need. He gives it all to them in order so they should be able to win the war. And we understand from this muscle, we understand the way things work with the Eibishter and the world. There's a level of godliness which is hidden and concealed, that it's impossible for us here in this physical world to reach it, and it cannot come and be revealed to us. And this level is called Ein Le'Rasa L'Kim Zulasecha, a level that no eye has ever beheld. The Eibishter, but in order to win this war, this battle that the Eibishter's children, every single one of us, has with the Yetzer Hara, which this is, like we said before, not the Aveda of Tzaddikim. They already won the war. The Yetzer Hara is long gone. This is the Aveda that simple people live with every single day. The Eibishter grants us also this treasure. Not only that, he throws it at us, even if he's not sure exactly are we going to succeed this time or not. But if we express a willingness and we say we're here to fight the good fight, the Eibishter just throws it at us. And the Eibishter gives this treasure dafka to the simple foot soldiers. Why? And here the Rebbe introduces a new concept to the Maimer. Since the foot soldiers go and serve the Eibishter with Mesiras Nefesh, with self-sacrifice, and without any limitations and boundaries, no matter if they understand or if they don't understand. What's the Rebbe saying over here? There's a very, very big difference the way a general fights a war and the way a foot soldier fights a war. A general fights a war with his mind. The greatest general is somebody who is a wise person, an experienced person, a person who's able to be real with himself and assess things as they are and not fool himself and not underestimate the strength of the enemy. And he's also in full control of his emotional state, so that he's working at full capacity and he's working with full energy every day. And he sits in his tent, in his command car, in his headquarters, and he draws up plans of what to do and how to do. However, the general never goes and does something that makes no sense. It's not part of the way that a general wins a war where he does things that have no chance of victory. It's not part of his Seder. It's not part of his Aveda. If a general just said, I'm going to do this even though the plan makes no sense, the enemy seems stronger, my troops seem to be tired, we're not ready yet with the forces that we need, etc., etc. And the general says, no, but we have to win the war, commands his troops to march out. This general is going to be a failure of a general. That's not the way you win a war. You win a war with proper planning, with clear-eyed vision of the situation, with wisdom,
Clarity.
with clarity. That's how you win a war. And that's how a general leads his army. How does a foot soldier fight? A foot soldier fights the complete opposite way. The foot soldier doesn't know the grand scheme. He doesn't know the entire situation on the battlefront. The only thing a foot soldier knows is that his commander told him that he has to hold this hill or he has to charge this fortress right now. And he knows that he must go and do it. Like the Rebbe explains in a tzescha, that if every foot soldier will say, I'm looking right here at the fortress, and the fortress is impenetrable, and therefore I am not going to charge, and I'm not going to try and conquer it, or I'm going to retreat from this hill. The Rebbe says that a foot soldier who does this is going to bring defeat to the entire army, because the foot soldier has no idea that at the same moment, this is what the Rebbe explains, he doesn't use these words, but he explains that he doesn't have the full idea of the full picture. He doesn't know what else is going on throughout the battlefield. And to illustrate it, we could say he doesn't know that at the moment that his commander told him to charge, a helicopter is about to come over the horizon and drop special forces right onto the machine gun nests and silence the artillery and do everything else that's needed. Or if the foot soldier is told to hold this hill, and the foot soldier makes a cheshbon, this hill is not so important. What's going to happen if I let the enemy advance one more hill? He doesn't know the full plan. He doesn't know that if this hill is taken, suddenly the column of tanks that's on its way to punch through the enemy lines is suddenly under the threat of enemy fire and will be destroyed because it's a narrow valley pass that goes underneath, and there's no way to pass if we're not holding this hill. And the foot soldier has no idea that tanks are meant to pass here soon. So if the foot soldier goes and makes decisions like the general makes decisions, he's going to bring a complete and utter failure and a disastrous failure. So the way a foot soldier fights the war is not with his understanding. He says to himself, to me, it makes no sense to hold on to these 50 square feet. It makes absolutely no sense, and I also see no chance of success. If we're lucky in the end of the day, one soldier out of all of the 10 soldiers that are here right now will still be shooting the machine gun and loading it and doing everything he could to stop the enemy. And what kind of sense does it make? Makes no sense. This foot soldier says, why do we have to storm this fortress now when we can't succeed? And nevertheless, he does it. Even though to him it makes absolutely no sense. And to him, he sees zero chance of success. He has no idea how it's going to work out. He's fully aware of all the stories of all the soldiers that died, and that was the end of them. He doesn't know how this case is going to work out. And yet he listens to his commander and does exactly what he's supposed to. This is the Aved of Mesiras Nefesh, of not saying, I'll do as much as I understand I can do, but saying I will do as much as my commander tells me I have to do. Way beyond anything that I think I could do, I'm going to do it. And this is the Aved of Mesiras Nefesh, that a Yid who doesn't know and doesn't understand enough to understand that he's supposed to serve the Eibishter, and yet he goes and does it every day. Even though his mind can't grasp the greatness of the Eibishter, he doesn't see the Eibishter in every detail. He doesn't feel his reality down here in this world. And he says, I'm going to go and serve the Eibishter even more than the tzaddik does. To me, I'm going to serve the Eibishter like the truth that I can't see he is. And I'm going to do it fully. Even though where I'm holding right now, I understand that my service to the Eibishter should be one day a year to come to Shalom Yom Kippur. That's my level of connection to the Eibishter. I feel the Eibishter to be real enough that he's probably a good guy, and he created the world and created me. And I should probably say thank you to him one day a year and come to Shalom Yom Kippur. That's where he's holding if he would serve the Eibishter based on his understanding. And what does he do instead? Every single day of the year, he stays away from anything the Eibishter doesn't want, even though his heart is burning for those things. And not only that, he serves the Eibishter and does all the things that the Eibishter wants. And not only that, he does it all with a joy. So this is way beyond his level of understanding. He should be in shul once a day in Kippur. And he serves the Eibishter every day he's in shul. And every day he's doing mitzvahs. This is a Mesiras Nefesh. He left any boundary of what he understands, how much he should do. And he's doing what he's supposed to do. He understands they should dedicate his life to work right now because he needs to make money. And his going to shul and his worrying himself with mitzvahs takes away from his ability to earn a living. He understands so many other ways that he should limit himself. He should serve the Eibishter just a little bit. And instead, what does he do? He goes all out and serves the Eibishter as much as the Eibishter wants him to serve him, not as much as he understands. In other words, he transcends any idea of self, what he understands, what he feels, and he says, I'm going until I can't anymore. And he finds that this I can't anymore never happens. He couldn't, he keeps going. That's the Aved of Mesiras Nefesh. And that's what it means to reach beyond the boundaries and limitations of Seichel. And when the Eibishter sees that there's a Yid who's showing up to the fight and is ready to do this service, the Eibishter says, you're going out there to fight for me in an irrational, transcendent way. I will also give you in an irrational and transcendent way. I will give you the powers. I will give you the ability to serve me and to succeed in serving me in this way. And that's why the Yid finds that he's able to show up every day in shul and do who knows how many mitzvahs, like we'll see soon in the Maimer, because the Eibishter gives him these powers. Okay, so the Rebbe introduced so far two ideas involved. The first idea is that there's an advantage to the Aveda of Iskafia, of coercing myself to serve the Eibishter, which is that I have to show up every single day and work beyond what I'm able to. And the second idea is, Rebbe said, in this Aveda of Iskafia, we actually also have this new idea that Rebbe mentioned for the first time in the man. We also have a Mesiras Nefesh. And a Mesiras Nefesh, by definition, means leaving all boundaries. Because I'm not doing what I think I could do. I'm not doing what I think I should do. I'm doing what the Eibishter said, even though it's beyond my abilities. With this, now we can finally understand our question from the beginning of the Maimer, why we will mention it some time also when Mashiach comes. Even though, like we asked earlier in the Maimer, the revelations of Mashiach will be infinitely greater than the revelations of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So why are we mentioning this story of Yetzias Mitzrayim after Mashiach comes? It's insignificant, it's nothing. Since the Eibishter brings down his treasures, specifically for winning what? Not for the Aved of a tzaddik, but for winning a war. In other words, for winning a situation of battle where the Yid has to fight and battle with his Yetzer Hara and his Nefesh Ba'amis. When Mashiach is going to come, it's going to be a time of peace and harmony and contentness. Everything is going to be good. We're not going to have to fight our Yetzer Hara. The Eibishter will remove the Yetzer Hara and the spirit of impurity from the world. And therefore, we won't be able to have the revelation of the great treasures that come dafka through the fight of the simple foot soldier. So therefore, therefore we will also mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, so that in the times of Mashiach we will also have the advantage that the Aved of Iskafia brings, and that this level, this deep level of Eitzar, should also be revealed and brought down during the times of Mashiach. And the Rebbe says, Mashiach will come, this Eitzar that we draw down into the world today, now, every day, and when Mashiach will come, will be B'tachlis Hagilui. Unlike today, where we can't see, we could see by the results. We could see by the end of the day. Here we are, the Jewish nation, after 3,500 years, and we're still going strong after all of the Chachamim of the world, with all of their Chach Melach, and all of the mighty forces and powers and empires of the world. They're long gone. They're long gone. And something very painful to say, but it seems, it seems like we're witnessing the crumbling of a superpower today. We see the crumbling of America in front of our eyes. It's never called America Medina Shel Chesed, and I'm certainly not a Navi. Not only I'm not a Navi, I'm also not an analyst. So I don't understand the long, the big story, the big picture. But we see yet another society, let's just say at the minimum, we see a society struggling with what its identity is, what its mission statement is. Does it have a right to exist? Is it a good society? Is it not a good society? The average American today has no idea how to answer these questions. And not only that, to the extent that he does answer them, he answers, no, we're an evil society. Our entire birth wasn't evil and in sin. So we see, and we're the Yidden. The Yidden are standing strong, and we're still going. That's Yidden as a whole, and every single Yid also sees within his own personal life that even though maybe he never had a moment in his life where he felt that he is a tzaddik, nevertheless here he is, another day of serving the Eibishter, another day of mitzvahs, another day of bringing goodness and kindness into the world. So we see that we do have, by the results, we see that we do have the revelation of Eitzer. We do have the power that comes from this deep treasure that the Eibishter grants us and gives us every day. But we can only see it from the results. We can't see it in front of our eyes. When Mashiach will come, we'll actually see this revelation in front of our eyes. And now to the final ace of the Maimon. And this is the complete understanding of the pasuk that the Maimon gives us in the pasuk that kiyimei tzescha me'eretz Mitzrayim, that just like the days when we left Mitzrayim and in the so too the Eibishter will show us wonders. When Mashiach comes, that when Mashiach will come, there will be two components. There will be both advantages. We will have Hamayladis, Kafya, Kiyimei tzescha me'eretz Mitzrayim. We're still going to be talking about the days when we left Mitzrayim, which was an Aveda of coercion, Aveda of Iskafia, and Aveda of Mesiris Nefesh. And that's the beginning of the pasuk. And then we will also have the Hamayladis, Hapcha. We will also have the advantage of transformation, which this is an end of the flows. The time of transformation is primarily when Mashiach will come. That's when the Eibishter will remove the spirit of evil, and much of the bad and evil will actually join the Eibishter and join the program of serving the Eibishter. So we have both components, both milas, when Mashiach will come. And now, try to pay attention to what the Rebbe is saying over here, because the Rebbe is going to make a beautiful point if we take it to heart. The Rebbe is saying we already had a story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We already had a story of leaving Egypt and of a geula, of a redemption, and yet, nevertheless, it wasn't the geula mitzvah shlema. It wasn't Mashiach. It wasn't Mashiach. Why not? And why Dafka now Mashiach can come? What's special? What was lacking when we in the times of Mitzrayim? And what's special that we have now that will bring to Mashiach Tzidkenu, which couldn't happen then? And that tells us what it is, and it's a beautiful point that the person could live with. Through our work and our actions in the time of Golos, which in general, the Aveda in the time of Golos, in the time when Yidden aren't in control of their own destiny, kivyachol, at least not of their bodies, it seems so. And therefore, Yid has to go on Mesiris Nefesh. And even within his own personal life, he's not in control. His body is materialistic and keeps turning in the wrong direction. And he has to fight with Mesiris Nefesh. And he has to forget about any calculations and limitations and definitions and boundaries of what he thinks he's capable of. And instead just serve the Eibishter because that's what the Eibishter wants. Why is this necessary? Because in the time of Golos, and especially in the times that we live in now, the last moments before Mashiach, there are obstacles and objectors and a tremendous amount of tests and challenges. Until what the Rebbe calls one of the hardest nisyenis, the nisyan of shame, of being embarrassed from other people. The Rebbe says, and something that's important to recognize, because somebody might think, oh, that's not my challenge. But if the Rebbe says that this is the primary challenge, or one of the primary challenges, the Rebbe discusses this point in several memoir, that the nisyan of embarrassment, of being ashamed to serve the Eibishter is actually one of the greatest challenges and nisyanis of our times. So it's worth it to spend at least a half a minute to try to bring out the point, because if we can't understand that, we'll never be able to do the work. And if we don't see the Rebbe's words as real, then we'll never be able to do the work that the Rebbe wants us. With Pashtus, the idea is that perhaps we can't admit it and we don't see it. But Pashtus, there is an element, and from what they were saying, it sounds like a major element of a person being embarrassed to stand up and declare and say, I am a Chassidish Yid. I am a Yid who believes wholly in my heart and in my mind in serving the Eibishter. I have no interest in anything of the world. And I am going to, yes, I'm going to be that Chassidish Yid. I'm going to do it. Are you going to tell me just today in the morning I heard you curse? And now you're coming and telling me, yeah, I heard you use Nibblpai, I heard you speak in an unrefined manner. And just yesterday we went together and we hung out at this in a Goyisha place, or we did something that has nothing to do with Taina and Mitzvahs, even if it wasn't in Aveda. And now you're coming and you're telling me, oh, you're a Chassid Shayid, you're going to learn Chitas Rambam, it comes time for a Fabring, and you're there and you're excited and you're speaking about Chassidim. And when it comes time to educate your children, you're saying, I only want the purest education for my children because I made my choice. I'm a Chassidish Yid, and they make fun of you. And a person has to be able to say, no, I'm not going to be embarrassed, and I will declare and announce to all of my friends who know who I am and where I am and how I am and where I stand, and they know all of my sins, and they know me truly where I'm holding. And yet I will stand up and announce without any shame, without any embarrassment. You should know that all of that is a lie. All of that is a farce. It's not who I am. It's not who I really believe and it's not what I really believe. It's not who I really want to be. And what do I really want to be? I want to be the tzaddik. I want to be somebody who sees no interest in anything of this world, who sees no interest in any of the pleasures of this world. That's the person that I want to be, and that's the person that I truly am, and I'm working to get there in my day-to-day behavior. So we have these, that's the way I understand it. So we have these nisyanis, these challenges to say that even though I'm a businessman, right? Even though I'm a businessman and this is what I do day in and day out, I work, still I'm a Chassidish Yid just as much as the Mishpeh, just as much as the Rav. I'm right there with him. The person doesn't pay any credence. He doesn't give any credence to these obstacles. And we dedicate our lives, no matter our previous failures, no matter the shame, no matter nothing. We learn Torah and we fulfill mitzvahs without any calculations, without any sophisticated cheshbonos, how much I should, when I should, where I should, until even those people the Gemara terms as those who are empty in you. In other words, they not a good condition when it comes to serving the Eibishter. Still, they're Milayim mitzvahs kirim. They might be called Ekonim from other things. They might be empty from other things. But when it comes to mitzvahs, they're full of mitzvahs. So even though they're empty from being in a high and proper level as a Yid, they're in a low level, and therefore they're empty because they're not in a high level of serving the Eibishter. They're still full of mitzvahs. Every single Yid, no matter his level, is pashut full of mitzvahs. The loyrak shem mekayim mitzvahs. So shem milayim mitzvahs. Not only that he fulfills mitzvahs, but he's full of mitzvahs. So through this we accomplish something new, that we leave galus with a tremendous wealth. So mitzvahs of mitzvahs with a tremendous wealth of Torah that we performed during this long duration of galus. We'll skip the brackets. And since this tremendous wealth of Torah and mitzvahs adds in the merits that the Yidden have, so therefore it also hastens the time of the coming of Mashiach, that it should come earlier than it's supposed to come. And that we go to Eretz Yisrael in on the clouds of the Eibishter, which the Rebbe says in another place means in an instant. The clouds of the Eibishter don't take any time; they will carry us in an instant to Yerushalayim Kodesh. In other words, from sitting right here, right now, you blink and you don't even blink, and you find yourself in the Beis Hamikdash. That immediately and now in our time should be the Geula, and in a way, it's you make tzescha that there will be both of the advantages. And here there was pointing out to you what he just finished explaining, and coming back to the point that I said before, that we should pay attention to what they were saying, what was missing by Yetzias Mitzrayim, and what we have now with Mashiach, and how we have it, and who made it, who gave it to us. Since the Geula of Mashiach came how? Through our work, our struggles, our challenges, our issues, our deficiencies. Because of that, that's why Mashiach came. Because we stood and worked through all of it. And no matter where we felt, what we held, what we understood, and what we thought we're capable of, We just did. We said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do what the Eibishter says, not what I think I should, not what I think I'm capable. I'm going to do what the Eibishter says. And this takes a tremendous amount of effort, like anybody who tried to do it knows. And we did this as human beings in this world. Why are we challenged so much? Because we're very human. The more human we are, the more challenged we are. So in other words, we worked down here in this world, with this world, as businessmen, as laborers, as people with challenges who need help to just get through a day. We did it all in a very real way in this very real world. That's something that didn't happen by Mitzrayim. By Mitzrayim, the Yidden didn't do an Aveda. They were enslaved and they didn't do an Aveda. They just had to find some Zchusim. Yidalef Nissen, this Maimon is Yidalef Nissen Maimon. They just had to give them a carbon paste, have to be busy with. It was all the Eibush that came from above and did it. And that's why even though it was a redemption, it was a Geula, but Mashiach it wasn't. Because it was missing the Aveda of us people down here in this world. We didn't serve the Eibishter as Yidden then. The Eibishter just came and took us out. Dafke now because we're serving the Eibishter. And we're serving the Eibishter in the Eifan of Iskafia, where we're people who the Eibishter put down into this world as simple, regular human beings, a man of this world. And in this situation, we coerce our body and we remove it from its materialism. And not only that, we go on Mesiris Nefesh. We don't do it as much as we understand that a materialistic person should also every once in a while dedicate a minute here and there to the Eibishter. But rather we do this in Eifan of Mesiris Nefesh. We say, yes, I am a material person. And nevertheless, I will act as if I am a godly person. Because that's the hidden truth that I believe in. And this is Mesiris Nefesh, because I'm going way beyond the boundaries of anything that I understand and can see. Since we are the ones, the simple foot soldiers doing this Aveda, therefore the world will become transformed. Because it's not the angels doing this Aveda. It's not the tzaddikim doing this Aveda. They're disconnected in a certain degree, to a certain level from the world. Therefore they can't transform the world. Dafka, a Yid who's here in this world and working as a human being, very much a part of this world and completely a part of this world and part of the lowliness of this world. When he does his Aved, he can transform this world, and now Mashiach could come to the world. Now the world itself can have the revelation of godliness. Whereas by Yetzias Mitzrayim, we had to run away from this world. We had to run away from Mitzrayim. And the great miracles were only for a small moment. And then the miracles were gone because the world couldn't contain them. When Mashiach will come, the revelations will last forever. Why? Because now we were working on it down here in this world. So let's see. Since the redemption comes through our work and our service to the Eibishter in a situation, in a time of Golus, especially in the worst of Golus, which is our times. Therefore, when Mashiach will come, we'll have both advantages. The first of all, it's going to be kiyimei tzescha me'eretz Mitzrayim, hamayla de'iskafia. We will have the maila of serving the Eibishter and the Eifan of Mesiris Nefesh and an Eifan of no boundaries. And together with this, when Mashiach will come, we will also have the great revelations of the times of Mashiach. And these revelations will be much greater. They will be wonders compared to the wonders of Mashiach will come. The wonders of Mitzrayim will be regular because the wonders of Yetzias Mitzrayim will be considered miracles towards them. In other words, when you look at the miracles of Mashiach, you will say that what happened in Yetzias Mitzrayim was not a miracle. The miracles of Mashiach will be so great that when you compare them to the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim, you say, no, those aren't miracles. That's regular stuff. And if you notice over here, what Deborah just said over here is that the revelations of our Enoniflois will also be a result of our Aveda. When during the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, it was Nigla Aleim Melech Malchim Lachem Kadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore it disappeared. However, when Mashiach will come, we will be able to hold the Enoniflois, the greatness of the revelations of the Eibishter down here in this world, and that's also the result of our Aveda. How is that? And the miracles will be the wonders of Mashiach will be greater even than the wonders of Kriyas Yamsuf, even though during Kriyas Yamsuf there was even greater revelations than during Yetzias Mitzrayim to Kol Echad Ve'echad Ma'arav Tzvei Ve'emer Zeh Keli V'Anvei. During the event of Kriyas Yamsuf, every single person, even a Yid on the lowest level, was able to point directly and say, here is the Eibishter right in front of me, and even a simple maidservant at Kriyas Yamsuf was able to see more than even the Nevi'im were able to see. And he calls it Hayalayam. All of that was only when the Yidden were by Kriyas Yamsuf. And what does it mean? It means in two respects. First of all, it was Melubish B'chinas Malchus. It was the Eibishter, but the Eibishter was still enclosed in a Madega of Malchus. Similar also to the revelation of Yitzias Mitzrayim, that was also enclosed in a certain lower level of the Pesach. And the second thing that was not by Kriyas Yamsuf, but will be when Mashiach will come, that the revelation of Kriyas Yamsuf was temporary. After they left Yamsuf, they weren't able to point to the Eibishter and say, here is my Eibishter. Why? Because the revelation, the reason for these two things, that the revelation had to come through some kind of a garment, through some kind of embodiment in something, so to speak. Not a body, not a corporal body, but it had to go through Malchus, or it had to go through this Mateg of Pesach, was because it came from above. And therefore, therefore, this world wasn't a proper place to get this revelation. And therefore, everything then had to be coerced. We couldn't get to his hapcha at the time of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Like we see literally that they had to escape and run away. Because what was missing from all of that? Because Yitzias Mitzrayim did not come as an outcome and as a result of human beings, of Yidden working down here in this physical world. However, when Mashiach will come, will be a different story. First of all, it will be there will be wonders even compared to the wonders that were in the time of Yitzias. Why? Because Shahagili, the revelation of Mashiach, the revelation of Mashiach will be without any garment, and therefore will be completely revealed. And that's why it will be wonders compared to the wonders of Yitzias Mitzrayim. And it was also brought about mitzad us down here in this world, and therefore it will be able to be permanent. And together with that, and yet we will still maintain the advantage of the work of today, the coerced work, the forced work, the Mesiras Nefesh work, which brings us the tzescha that Rebbe discussed before. So we will have both of them, speedily in our days now, mamash. So with this maimer, we have what to live with on Pesach. We understand what the idea of Pesach is, and we understand how it's relevant every day of our lives, and we understand how dafka this aveda of Pesach is what brings Mashiach Tzidkenu. So we're sitting by the Seder, we're preparing for Pesach, and we're trying to think, how's it relevant to my life in general, and how's it relevant to my day-to-day life? So we remember what David says in this maimer, that every single day we repeat this story of Yitzias Mitzrayim, we leave yet another one of my limitations, yet another one of my inabilities, yet another one of my handicaps. I keep transcending them one after the other. And this is a process that happens every day, and throughout each day also, like the Rebbe explained. Throughout each day I go through this process. And what am I doing with this? I'm actually bringing Mashiach Tzidkenu. I'm not reliving the past by doing this every day. I'm actually also moving forward. I'm bringing about the revelation of Mashiach. This is what Pesach is all about, and this is what we could live on with in this Pesach. So, Pesach. We'll see you all after Pesach, because that's the way the schedule runs with the day of the week. And Yiratzin that it should be in Yerushalayim Rakedesh, and we could relearn this Maimer, but this time see the Maimer the way the Eibishter sees the Maimer.
Wow. It's good.
Good Yom Tov.
A good Yom Tov.